Trump calls Zelensky a dictator, himself a king, insinuates Zelensky started the war with Russia, and drops an EO denying illegal immigrants access to benefits. DOGE racks up more savings and wants to give taxpayers a little taste. Hegseth wants to revive our warrior spirit. RFK wants to discover what's true about health. Hamas releases bodies in exchange for the living, and household robots are coming to a home near you. Drew, a Trump presidency is like living in accelerated dog years. This is crazy.
Just keeps going and going.
Things move so fast.
And you don't know what's coming next. Nuts. You don't know what he's going to say, what he's going to tweet.
What he's going to tweet. Oh my God. The whole King thing, we got to talk about that. But first.
We got to jump right into it because this has been making international headlines. I think Trump might have turned on Ukraine. Let's just read his tweet verbatim and see what you think. Think of it. A modestly successful comedian, Vladimir Zelensky, talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that couldn't be won, that never had to start, but a war that he, without the U.S. and Trump, will never be able to settle. The United States has spent $200 billion more than Europe, and Europe's money is guaranteed, while the United States will get nothing back. Why didn't sleepy Joe Biden demand equalization? In that this war is far more important to Europe than it is to us. We have a big, beautiful ocean at separation. I can hear him saying it too.
I know.
A big, beautiful ocean. On top of this, Zelensky admits that half of the money we sent him is quote unquote missing. He refuses to have elections, is very low in Ukrainian polls, and the only thing he was good at was playing Biden like a fiddle. A dictator without elections, Zelensky better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. In the meantime, we are successfully negotiating an end to the war with Russia, something all admit only Trump and the Trump administration can do. Biden never tried, Europe has failed to bring peace, and Zelensky probably wants to keep the gravy train going. I love Ukraine, but Zelensky has done a terrible job. His country is shattered and millions have unnecessarily died. And so it continues. Sheesh.
Yeah. Okay. So this is where we have to understand Trump as an absolute PR master, because not everything that he's saying in this is true. Some of it is true. Some of it is not. And I want to blend this. I don't know. Do you plan to play the clip of him talking about the fact that Zelensky? Okay. So he says in a clip, he's like mid-sentence, basically says that Zelensky never should have started this war. He doesn't say it exactly like that, but that's the intimation. So just patently false. Mm-hmm. So Ukraine was invaded by Russia, the aggressor. It was a sovereign nation. Russia had absolutely no authority in which, under which to do that, other than the master morality of we're stronger than you, and so we can do it. And to lose sight of that would be horrific. And so you see more of that here. So first of all, it is hotly contested as to whether Zelensky is low in the polls or over 50%. It seems like polls are saying that he is over 50%. So I don't know where Trump is getting it. I've heard him, I think he said he was at 4% or something like that. As with Trump many times, you have to go in and separate what is fact and what is fiction. If you read this as a string of statements of fact, you're probably going to drive yourself crazy. If, on the other hand, you read this as somebody who is in the middle of a negotiation and they are trying to get leverage, then it's going to make a lot more sense. But it is very important for everybody to hold in plain view what is actually true. So anybody that faults Zelensky for fighting, that's crazy to me. If somebody invaded America, I would go fucking apeshit. I would wield weapons. Like, I would do everything to fight for my sovereignty and for the safety of the American people. I would get behind any president that said something like, I don't need a ride, I need bullets, right? Like that whole, it's all gangster. Now, I am not saying that Trump is wrong about the fact that Zelensky has no leverage in the negotiation. I don't think that Trump is wrong to point out that Zelensky is prolonging the war. But when you look at it and say, what are you asking him to give up? It's going to be a lot. To accept that you've lost as many Ukrainian youth as you've lost, to accept that somebody came in and took part of your land. I don't expect anybody to take that sitting down. Now, at the same time, if Trump is looking at where the leverage is with Russia. Ukraine has no leverage. Ukraine has certainly no leverage with the US. In fact, Trump has said this, and he is correct, that the leverage over Putin is, if I'm Trump, I'm saying to Putin, hey, I will arm the life out of the Ukraine to make sure that they can fight back against you. Don't think I won't. Don't misconstrue anything. I don't like him. I want to see this come to a conclusion, but do not mistake that for in an instant, if I feel like you're not agreeing to things that are quote unquote reasonable, which I know is going to be the thing that set people off. Yeah. And I am mind reading. I don't have any privileged information here. I'm just what I know about Trump, what I understand about negotiations. I have a feeling it's roughly something like this. So he's posturing with Putin. He's saying, look, I'll arm the life out of this kid and I will make sure that they can keep fighting you tooth and nail forever if you don't agree to something that's reasonable. But Trump is trying to get to a deal, which means Trump, as not a Ukrainian, is perfectly fine with the fact that they're going to lose some land to stop all of the killing. Now, whether we can take him at his word that he just wants to see the end of the violence, I don't know. It seems true enough. I certainly think he wants to stop sending them money. So even if you just want to say, look, Trump's only motive in all of this is to stop sending them money, fine. It will end up saving lives in the long run anyway. But I think it's pretty gross to make out like we wouldn't be doing the exact same thing in Zelensky's shoes. So sure, you want the violence to end, but nobody is going to be quick to be like, yeah, just go ahead and keep what you have taken. He's going to want to fight. He's going to want to get himself into a much stronger position to have some leverage in the negotiation. So once you start looking at the triangle here between Trump, Putin, and Zelensky as this is a game of people posturing for leverage or maneuvering for leverage. Zelensky wants more money. He wants more backing so that he can be on the offensive. I get why this probably isn't going to happen, but you can imagine if he had weaponry that were allowing him to push back to reclaim the land that he had or even push into Russia, he's now in a very different negotiating position than he's in right now, where he's being made to be like the person at the kids' table, let the adults negotiate this. But an objective look at the facts is that the leverage is all between the US and Russia, period, end of story. Trump knows it. And so I don't know what it was that Zelensky did that put Trump in this posture where he's being publicly against him. I'm going to guess it's just that he's trying to make sure that Zelensky is going to agree with whatever he negotiates with Putin. That's my read. Now, people can have all kinds of moral problems with that, and I wouldn't bat an eyelash. I get it. Again, I would be fighting just like Zelensky is if this were my country, and I would be just as outraged at the loss of territory and life and all of that. And it is so unfair and so immoral. I get it. But realpolitik, the world works in a certain way. It is a game of power, and that's what we're watching play out. And this is where, please, if you can channel the certainly our community who I care deeply about, but I want, like, what do people think is my blind spot? I want to know what they think I'm saying, because I'm not saying that that I love what Trump is doing, but I am saying that in the game of realpolitik, the world of power, it's not a bad play from an American standpoint, because now we stop sending them money. We can reinvest that in what we're doing in America, which is what people voted for. They want to stop sending money to all these foreign places. They want an America first policy. They want to see the middle class growing again. And from the perspective of negotiating tactics, it's smart. What do you think is the criticism of that stance that I can address right now?
I think I'm channeling my inner Bernie Sanders here, that right now Trump is aligning with Putin because he's effectively taking all the power away from Zelensky. By releasing that tweet, it seems like Zelensky won't get his funding. It seems like the Ukrainian army is now at its knees. So unless the European Union rallies and decides to help out, which I doubt that they will because they don't want to do an active war against Russia, this would open the door for Russia to just kind of swoop in and kind of attack them. So I think a lot of the nervousness, because nothing actually happened and we're all speculating, but a lot of this nervousness and unease is that Trump is aligning with Putin and empowering him to expand his takeover, because without taking the resources or threatening to take the resources away from Zelensky would leave basically a red carpet into the Ukraine from Russia's standpoint.
Okay, I think it's worth playing the Bernie clip. Let's play that and then I'll give you my reaction.
Yesterday, we witnessed an extremely sad moment in American history. We saw the President of the United States aligning himself with the dictator of Russia, Vladimir Putin.
Pause it. Okay, I don't think we have any reason to believe that what we're witnessing is Trump aligning himself with Putin. Again, what lens gives you the highest predictive validity? if you look at Trump's behavior as aligning himself with Putin, it's going to be nonsensical. Because if he were aligning himself with Putin, there would be some sort of quid pro quo, a thing that he wants to get from Russia in the long term. What are we going to be doing? What are we going to be teaming up? Like, for instance, if you're going to align with Putin, you say, hey, Putin, we're going to give you funding because we want mineral rights in the Ukraine. Zelensky is pushing back. Fuck that kid. I'm on your team. We're going to crush this guy. I'm going to be hands off. I'm not going to draw any red lines. Mm-hmm. You go do your thing. We're withdrawing our support. And then I want to make sure that we get access to those mineral rights. If you saw that, or if that's what ends up playing out, then 100%, that's exactly what Trump was doing. He's aligned with Putin and he wanted to get the mineral rights and he doesn't give a shit whether he gets them from Zelensky or Putin. Okay, cool. Now it's like, all right, if that plays out, then that's the take here. What I think is actually going to play out, this is what I think will have the highest predictive validity, is that Trump is saying, okay, Russia has the leverage over the Ukraine. The only reason that the Ukraine is able to keep fighting is because the US and Europe is funding them. Europe isn't funding them nearly as much as America is. And by the way, they're doing it as a loan, so they're going to get paid back. So why am I doing this when I've been elected to be an American first president? That doesn't make any sense. I know what the world thinks about me. I know the world thinks that I'm aligned with Putin. There's no universe in which I'm going to let people say that I'm a puppet for Putin. So I am going to be prepared to, as he has said, fund the Ukraine just to make Putin agree to something. So he gets Putin to come to a negotiating table in the way that the entire world has had 4 years in his defense to get them to the negotiating table. They haven't. They've just been fighting. There's been no successful peace talks of any kind. I don't think Zelensky and Putin have even spoken to each other in years. So if you look at it from, and this would be my question to Bernie, and now what? Like, what do you want to see happen next? So my gut instinct is what Bernie would want to see is keep funding Ukraine so that they can fight, give them so much funding that they can go on the offensive and really push those people back. So what is the very thing that Trump is saying he will do if Putin doesn't agree to peace? I'm going to fund them. But do we really want to do that? Do we as Americans? I get why the Ukraine wants to do that. And I get why anybody would scream moral outrage and say, this is what should happen, ought to happen. I'll use the word ought. That if somebody says morally, this is what ought to happen, now you can have a debate. My organizing principle is we want people to stop dying. If that's your organizing principle, all of a sudden what Trump is doing is make sense. If your organizing principle is you cannot allow somebody to gain even an inch of ground, then what he's saying makes sense. This is why getting people to state what their value system is upfront. Trump has been upfront since before he got elected. I want the killing to stop. I want the killing to stop. So all of a sudden, okay, looking at leverage, North Star of I want the war to end, everything Trump is doing it makes sense. It's not him aligning with Putin. Now, again, this is everything I'm saying right now is a hypothesis. That hypothesis becomes testable because if he then negotiates mineral rights out of Ukraine with Putin, well, now you have it. It was all about mineral rights for him.
All smoke and mirrors.
It was all smoke and mirrors. He was saying the nice thing to get to it. So we're going to be able to see how this plays out. But if you have the objective of ending the war, everything Trump is doing makes sense. So we're going to see this play out in the fullness of time. But the thing I think people keep losing sight of is you have to stop Russia with force. Now, I have bigger concerns that what Putin is actually doing is he goes, okay, I really don't want to fuck with Trump. Trump is more than happy to be aggressive, to throw money behind Ukraine or whoever to get into a battle. I don't want to do that. I want to bide my time till this guy's out of office. And I'm going to use democracy against him. I'm not going to hold any elections either, which is one thing that drives me crazy about the way that Trump is talking about Zelensky right now. Trump is talking about Zelensky like Zelensky is worse than Putin. That's crazy town. Yeah. Again, from a leverage perspective, I get why he's spinning that narrative, but it's a bullshit narrative. You've got Putin poisoning, killing enemies, invading sovereign nations, pure insanity. And so the rhetoric is gnarly, but the actual outcome that we're going to see play out, I think, is along the lines of he wants to stop sending money to the Ukraine. He wants to draw a hard and fast line and say no more and move on.
It's giving me the heebie-jeebies a little bit because I'm starting to see a pattern with Trump where he kind of says aggression out loud. He tweets it. He puts the strong man fist down. I just didn't think it was going to turn on the Ukraine, and I just don't want Russia to use this as they're in now to then kind of do the same thing that Israel done, where they negotiate the ceasefire. Trump takes the credit for brokering the deal. Israel kind of backdoors into Palestine, and the war keeps kind of happening. And I don't want the same thing to happen here, where Trump releases this tweet. Ukraine is now weakened, quote unquote, on the global scale because the checkbook is now being taken off the table. And then Russia kind of backdoors in them and tries to grab up as much land as they can before they actually stop. You know what I mean? So
I do. Yeah. And we have to separate two issues. Mm-hmm. So you've got Israel making moves on Gaza, clearly, given Trump's own rhetoric. I think Trump wants to see an ally expand into that space. Mm-hmm. I think that Trump himself is, he has expansionist tendencies, desires. I don't think that Trump would launch a military incursion in order to expand, but all of his talk about America or Canada as the 51st state, all of that stuff definitely makes me think, okay, Trump wants to take control of Gaza. Trump would love to see us get to fold Canada in under the fold. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that Trump is trying to partner up with Putin in order to get a hold of the Ukraine. That is where that becomes a testable hypothesis. We've already talked about that part. What worries me is Putin definitely seems like he's willing to use military might, not willing. Putin has, over the last, 15, 20 years, been using military might in order to reacquire territory going back to the USSR days. So that's where I want to see what Putin does. If we get a ceasefire here, what does that lead to? Is it he just bides his time until Trump's out of office? Is it that he is like, cool, I'll pause there, but I've got my eyes on something else? That we're about to find out.
We are going to. There's a lot of things breaking. So I just hope that international level, we can just keep it together. We just keep it together. There's like three little like micro wars, I feel like, brewing across.
So let me ask though, because and now what, as the dominant question, what would you like to see happen on the Ukraine front?
This is going to sound cheesy, but peace. Like, I just want Russia to withdraw from their territory because we've seen little by little.
Realpolitik, they're not going to do that.
So you think it's already like, now that I'm here, it's mine?
You have to fight, of course.
Yeah.
Like, you will have to violently expel them. Yeah. So given that you would have to violently expel them.
That would require boots on the ground. Now what? Yeah, that would require boots on the ground.
Not on our part. We could keep funding Ukraine. We could go to Europe and say, Europe, we're going to do XYZ, whatever thing they want us to do. And in exchange, we want you to match us dollar for dollar. Ukraine, give us the mineral rights that we're looking for. Consider this basically all the military funding that we're giving you as a down payment on the mineral rights. And we're going to back you. And you're way better off giving us 50% of the mineral rights and being a country than you are not giving us the mineral rights and not being a country. But we're not going to send troops over there. Not a single American soldier is going to die on Ukrainian or Russian soil. But we are going to get Andril to send you a metric shit ton of weapons. We're going to keep sending you funding so that you can get weapons from all across Europe, and you guys are going to fuck them up. And by the way, we're going to remove all of our dictates that you can't like launch certain missiles into Russia. Yeah. But now what? What do you think Russia does?
Fights back. And
fights back. Yeah. They've got nukes. Like, they're going to push. So it's like, if you actually want peace, you have to push that on to the next step. How do you get peace? And that's why I'm saying, when you look at Trump through the lens of somebody who actually wants peace, but understands the game of leverage, he's saying, I'm holding in my back pocket that I'm going to fund the shit out of this kid and just let him come in and kick the shit out of the Kremlin. But I would rather we just go, fine, you're going to keep some of the territory. Maybe they're trying to negotiate giving some back, whatever. Yeah. But how do we actually get to peace? So it's kinetic war, or it's the threat of kinetic war. And that's it. Like, I don't see anything else.
Well, one thing we all might see is some money back with what all this DOGE cuts that's happening. Trump has announced a DOGE dividend. Let's kind of hear his comments and see what he says.
DOGE savings to American citizens and 20% goes to paying down debt because the numbers are incredible, Elon. So many billions of dollars, billions, hundreds of billions, and we're thinking about giving 20% back to the American citizens and 20% down to pay back debt and pay down debt, which is, if you look at value, if it were a real estate balance sheet, the debt is tiny, but we still want to pay it down. Doesn't matter.
So I'm gonna hit the inflation button. Inflation, if you're in the live chat, you guys will get that one. How do you feel about him actually sharing the savings with the American people versus using all the DOGE savings to pay off the debt first?
We'll get back to the show in a second, but first, let's talk about something that's on everybody's mind. The dollar is not what it used to be. The markets are more unstable than ever with way too many variables changing at once. And if you're paying attention, you know traditional investment strategies might not be enough anymore. That's why I want to tell you about today's sponsor, American Alternative Assets. They specialize in helping investors diversify with gold, a nice, finite, inflation-resistant physical asset that's preserved well for thousands of years. Now, what stands out about American Alternative Assets for me is how simple they make it. You can transfer or even roll over funds from your existing retirement accounts, 401ks or IRAs without selling your assets. No taxes, no penalties. If you're ready to explore gold as a part of your investment strategy, call 1-888-615-8047 or go to tomgetsgold.com. Again, that's 1-888-615-8047 or just visit tomgetsgold.com. This is a paid advertisement. Now, back to the show. I think it's a brilliant political tactic, and I hate everything about it. So here's why. The American people are going to need to taste the success of these efforts in order to keep backing him. He knows I'm on a ticking clock. I have roughly 18 months before people have to start campaigning for re-election in the House. And given that, if all I do is put a bunch of tariffs in place, the cost of living keeps going up, which, by the way, inflation is starting to run hot again. It doesn't matter that it's not his, he didn't cause that inflation. Won't matter. Mm-hmm. We're feeling the inflation and people will vote against the Republicans for sure. Yeah. So he's like, okay, I've got to do something to put like very visible money in people's pockets. So I get it. Gangster political move. Now, why do I hate it? Because you're not paying down the deficit as fast as you could. So the tremendous irony is what you're doing is by continuing to deficit spend more than you need to, you're actually taking purchasing power from people as you give them checks. So it works psychologically, but at the end of the day, it won't result in getting the debt down as fast as possible. Now, if I was advising Trump, would I say, yeah, you should probably do it because it's going to keep you in power longer. And if you really are serious about bringing manufacturing back to the US and you really are serious about making the economy better, but you know it's going to take you 4, 8, 12, 16, I mean, it's going to take a long time to really onshore this and get to the true golden age of America, because you're going to lay the tracks now, but it's going to take time. So it's one of those where as a part of the commentary class, I can stick by my morals, but in the like knife fight that is politics, it's probably the right move. You use some percentage of it to effectively bribe the populace, the taxpayers, the voters, and then you use some percentage of it. I think they're talking 20 and 20. Yeah. So 20% is going to go back to the taxpayers, and you then use the other 20% to begin paying down the debt. And then the rest is just proper savings, and you're just reducing the deficit spending. So it's probably the right move in the messiness of reality, but I really do hate that we're not able to just plow forward and pay that debt down as rapidly as humanly possible.
I think that also kind of shows to the limitation of the cost savings. I think if we would have found $6 trillion in cost savings, it would have been like, okay, let's just knock this debt out. But I think that because it's almost like a credit card payment. Like we could probably, with all these DOGE payments, pay like 3 or 4 months ahead, which is a good start. But they're realizing, all right, I still got another 2, 3, 4, 50 years to kind of actually hit the root of this thing. So let's just share some in the meantime, get the win to your point, and then.
I think if they found $6 trillion, it'd be the exact opposite. They would cut bigger checks. They would throw money around if they're really smart, they save some of the kickbacks for right as we're going into the midterm elections. Yeah. And you would effectively run the Democratic playbook of promising people that you're going to give them things because it works universally. And you're going to have saved money and then hand it back out, which is way better than printing money to do it. But yeah, I think they would go ham. Like, politicians gonna politic, because the reality is there's architecture of the human mind, and if you're putting money in people's pockets, they're going to be pretty amped. And the only reason that it didn't work in this election for people is, one, they were given money from COVID quite a long time ago, and so people have short-term memories. And then on top of that, it's just because of money printing, because it wasn't through savings, it was all through deficit spending. They're still having a hard time making ends meet. So they're like, you're saying the economy's great, you're sending me money, but this still feels like ass. I don't feel good. My kids are depressed. Like, they're not able to get ahead. And so it didn't end up playing out the way that they would want it to. But if you found $6 trillion in savings, you could really get people on your side in a big way. The problem is they're not going to find $6 trillion worth of savings probably ever. And even if you were willing to slash and burn some of the entitlements, you create a whole nother firestorm from that. So anyway, it's not going to play out like that, but I do think it would cause them to spend more.
Well, you know who won't be getting any more? Oh, the ad messed it up. Dang. All right, we're really going to get YouTube Premium, guys. All right. Jumping right into it, illegal immigrants are going to be losing their taxpayer benefits, as Trump just signed an EO yesterday about that. And he outlined some of the cost savings they have seen of what happened through their DOGE investigation.
President Trump signing an executive order ending all federal taxpayer benefits for illegal immigrants.
Lucas Tomlinson is live in Washington with more. Hey, Lucas.
Well, good morning, Ainsley. Good morning, guys. Some eye-opening numbers for you this morning. President Trump's executive order bars illegal aliens from receiving federally funded benefits to the total of $177 billion. And here's a little breakdown for you. It includes
$177 billion. That was the estimated total that there was going to be provided to migrants that is now getting slashed.
Yep. Every time somebody says this is a drop in the bucket, I want to tear my hair out. That's crazy. You can do a lot with $177 billion. So when I was watching Europe do their immigration policies, I'm like, guys, you cannot do that. If you have a system where people can come get, say, free healthcare, and you let anybody who's in the country get access to free healthcare, but they're not generating tax revenue in order to pay for the additional burden on the healthcare system, you simply break the healthcare system. This is why you do not have a right to somebody else's labor. You've got to pay people. And so if you're not able to get the taxes that you need to make that system function, you're just going to break it. And so you're watching it going, what are they doing? Like there is no outcome to this other than that it ends up breaking, because you just keep stuffing non-producing people into the system. So while I have the deepest of compassion for illegal immigrants, just assume that they're good people, assume that they come here, they want a better life. Like, I get it. But the realities of the system are that if you bring people in and start paying out to them, but they did not contribute to the system, then it breaks. This is exactly why everybody's worried about an aging population, because you have a ton of people that have to be taken care of that are no longer generating tax dollars, being supported by a much smaller number of people that are generating the tax revenue that you need to support all these people. And it becomes an absolute nightmare. America right now is a column. We have roughly the same number of people that need to be taken care of as we have people that are able to take care of them. But you just run the demographic numbers and you see that begins to widen out, and we become a pyramid. Now, if you exacerbate that by throwing a ton of immigrants in here, now you're just speeding up the process of us going from that column to the inverted pyramid. And so it's like, I get it. There's going to be a lot of cries of people that just, this doesn't feel good. Yeah. And I get it. But if you do what feels good in this situation, you accelerate the rate at which we drive off the cliff. And so it's like, it will feel good right until everybody's toast. And we are in the process of doing the hard thing. And I think Trump is doing the very politically wise, hard thing of saying, if you're already part of the family, we're going to take care of the family first. So if you're an American citizen, we got you. And if you are a legal immigrant, we got you. But if you're an illegal immigrant, you're out. Mm-hmm.
I got nothing. 177 billion. You can't argue with that. Like,
not only can you argue with it, people are going to argue with it. They are going to protest. They are going to freak out because Their societies necessarily need people that lean compassion. And they necessarily need people that lean personal responsibility. And it is the tension between the two that makes this thing work, which is why I think this is the right play. It is, it's not giving all the people that want compassion for everybody everything they want, but it's also not giving the personal responsibility people everything that they want. It's not saying no entitlements, nobody gets anything. It's just saying if you're here illegally, we have to use something to draw the line. That's what we're going to draw the line around. And that, I think, will cause reverse immigration. And you'll find people that came here specifically because they thought they were going to be able to get benefits, and they're going to bounce. And they're going to be like, okay, well, I can't make it work here. Then
on to Europe.
Go. On to Europe. Yo, that's dark. Yo. It's also a long swim.
You kind of flagged this next one on my radar, where Pete Hegseth said they have major plans for budget cuts, but he kind of had this ethos, this new proclamation he wants to kind of bring back to America. So let's review his quote.
We must act urgently to revive the warrior ethos, rebuild our military, and establish deterrence. The Department of Defense is conducting this review to ensure we are making the best use of taxpayers' dollars in a way that delivers on President Trump's defense priorities effectively, efficiently, and effectively.
So what do you think he meant by warrior ethos?
Okay, so putting my biases on the table, I am a freak for this kind of stuff of wanting to be hardcore, wanting to be tough, wanting to be strong. My journey as an entrepreneur was one of learning to toughen up, to switch my mentality from what's the least I can do to what's the most I can bear. And when you look at all the great things throughout history that have been accomplished, it is always people with the mentality of what's the most that I can bear in service of something that is meaningful. Now, every word out of my mouth, people need to understand I'm driven by what I call honorable goals, meaning they are goals that don't just serve you. They do serve you. I want to be very clear. They should serve you, but they should also serve others. So when you start talking about uplifting America, like I am here for that. And to get there, we've got to have that warrior ethos. We've got to be a group of people that were the pioneers that struck out from foreign lands, that wanted a better life, that were willing to face hardships. Like imagine leaving somewhere like London, a thriving city that was hundreds, if not thousands of thousand years old by the time that people left and came to America. And you get here and now you're like in the wilderness, you are facing winters, people are dying all around you, but you were willing to face that, to take that risk, to say, I want the opportunity to compete against this harsh thing we call life and see what I can build. And that has been the ethos of America literally until probably the 60s or 70s when it really started to change. And it started to be the sense of like, we want to over-index on the compassion, like no child left behind. Like,
are you blaming the hippies right now? Like
I'm blaming the thing that gave birth to the hippies. And this is when you create so much safety, you create so much abundance that you can indulge in that. Because when you think about somewhere like Sparta, and I wouldn't want to go back to Sparta, they would literally, if a child had like a deformation or something at birth, they would literally put it on a hill and let it die. Like that's crazy. I want nothing to do with that. I'm very glad that we live in a time where we don't need to go all the way to that. But to forget that there is a balance to walk where you do need men on that wall that are going to protect you, to ensure that you continue to have this age of abundance. When you lose sight of that, you become the target. And that's why, one, it feels good. Having spent so much of my adult life trying to get stronger, and I do not make claims to be the strongest ever. That's not what I'm saying. But I am way stronger than I used to be, physically, emotionally, like just the joy of my life has been realizing how much I could toughen up, and that made me more capable. I want that for everybody. I want people to feel how good that feels, to instead of saying someone is going to come and save me, you're saying to yourself, I don't need to be saved. I can save myself. Or, I mean, if you really want to get gangster about it, no one's coming to save me. And I've got to do this on my own. And if you look at that and it's a sad feeling, you're missing the opportunity of being the human animal, which is designed to adapt. And the way that an animal adapts is to have evolutionary pressure put on it. That if you don't get better, you're going to get left behind, you're going to die, whatever. And when you're facing the wilderness, it's like we don't have time for people that have dumb fucking ideas. Your idea either works or it doesn't. This is my favorite Thomas Sowell quote. The last 30 years is a paraphrase, but the last 30 years have been marked by exchanging what worked for what sounds good. And what they're all calling common sense, I will call a return to just, does it work or not? It's all about efficacy. Yeah. And so that's what the warrior spirit is to me, is I live in a dangerous world. Things are going to be hard, and I am going to be prepared to fight and win. And rejuvenating, I mean, because this is coming from Pete Hegseth, let's not forget what he does for America, that you certainly want to have a warrior class inside of your country that heeds that call, that is motivated by that. And yeah, so I love it. Now, again, I started by saying this is my bias. I understand that I am, because of my own life journey, I just get super motivated by that idea of being tough, of standing up for what you believe in. It just feels awesome. So yeah, I loved it.
I feel like that's like reinforcing, not a stereotype, but we kind of want the machismo to come back a little bit. And we kind of want to be able to say the hard things, be honest. We might have to hurt some feelings. So yes, we're not throwing babies off a cliff anymore, but there are going to be some losers, and it's okay. And there are going to be people who are losing now who, if they toughen up, can become winners. So I think there is a paradigm shift happening right now where people are starting to realize, like, everybody getting a trophy might not have been the best implementation of something that we did in the last few years.
It's true. And man, I want to echo your point. There are going to be losers, and it's going to be hard. People are going to have a very hard time looking at that. And this is where now we hit your education button, because I think that we have a moral obligation to our children to recognize how brains develop, to give them every opportunity to maximize what they are born with. We are born uneven, Lord knows. But at a minimum, you can give people the opportunity to make the most of who they are. Yeah. And we're not doing that. And so there is a huge moral failing on us. And I think we want to correct that as much as possible. But reigniting this can-do spirit, the warrior ethos, like, it is a necessary step on that path, that you have to hold people accountable. And if you don't, it doesn't work. That's the going back to, and now what? You can try to love somebody and try to tell them, hey, everything's okay and it's fine and you're just as good as they are and all that. But if you're really not, then that person is going to be very confused by life, because they're like, well, wait a second. I'm not able to do some of the things that the other people are able to do. And so now they're not going to use these words, but now I have to say to somebody, slow down so I can lead. Yeah. Instead of training people, look, you're going to routinely encounter people that are bigger, faster, stronger, smarter than you. And you're going to have to find your path to adding value to yourself and to others through life, understanding where you fall, and this is a rule that I put into my own life, fully recognizing that I'm not the smartest, I'm not the best literally at anything, but that I would never, ever, ever allow myself to say, slow down so I can lead. And that means some people are going to pass me. And look, that hurts every time, because I want to be the best. But the reality is, the only thing that I can think of that's worse than losing is having to ask somebody to slow down so I can lead. It puts you in such a fragile position. Oh God, it feels so gross. In fact, can I fractal? If I can fractal on the conquering of the American West. Unfortunately, I don't remember this guy's name, but there was a battle against, I think we were fighting Mexico in the Mexican War, and lies. It was the Civil War, but out in Texas. And there was I don't remember if he's a general. Anyway, he was running a given battle. And because he stayed at the back, his own people turned their guns on him. Sheesh. His own side shot at him with like a howitzer, I think. So it's like, rah, 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 rah. And that's what happens when you're saying, slow down so I can lead.
Sheesh. Ooh.
People are not here for it.
Not here
like
for
when
it.
You play that one out in real life, it's ugly.
You know what else people are not here for? Trump calling himself a king. So he tweeted on Truth Social, and it got picked up by the White House Twitter account. Congestion pricing is dead, Manhattan, and all of New York is saved. Long live the king. Okay. President Donald J. Trump. And he tweeted a mock-up of a Time magazine, it looks like, with him wearing a crown. It seems like trolling, because everybody's worried about Dictator Donald, but
It is
I feel like this is
trolling.
not helping his case.
This is terrible PR. Why does he do this? Look, I get it. Here's the reality. This is why it bothers me. He really, like, if people are like, no, for real, Donald, be king. We're going to amend the Constitution. He would go for it. That's what I don't like. Now, will he break laws, Destiny? I can hear you screaming that he already did on January 6th. But will he break laws to do it? No, I don't think so. But would I be campaigning on this show aggressively if somebody puts forward a constitutional amendment to let him or anybody else run for a third term? Yes, that is a terrible fucking idea.
Yeah,
we ran the experiment. It is a bad idea. So having the fresh blood, having the turnover is very, very, very important. And so seeing him constantly leak how much he wants to keep going, oh, I hate it so much. And if he is really just kidding and you could reach inside his soul and see that I'm wrong and that's not what he wants, he's not doing himself any favors, because he says so many fucking things that just convince me this guy for real. If put in a George Washington position, he'd be like, all right, cool, I'll keep running. Yeah, okay. Look, the people wanted it. They want me to be
That's
king.
it right there. Like, he jokes around like, no, I mean, they say I'm the greatest president and they would keep me, but I don't really want it. But he keeps dropping these hints that, like, yes, if somebody passes the legislation, he would 100% accept, he'll 100% step to, and he'll rule until he dies. Like,
in fact, I think, and I'm out over my skis here, chat, so please drop into the comments, but I think this is called Bonapartism.
Bonapartism.
Yeah, so Bonapartism, again, over my skis, bear with me, but I think this is correct. Bonapartism is where you say, it's what the people wanted. The people I was democratically elected, which is true. That's how it starts. You're democratically elected, but then you're so good. People love you so much. They want to make you emperor. And so they do. And then it's like, but bro, it's what the people wanted. This is why everybody looks at Washington, and despite the slaves, because I know you got a whole list of jokes on that one. Despite that horrifying stain on everyone's legacy around back then, he was actually offered to be king of America, and he said no. That's crazy. Most people, and in my book, and I'm mind reading, but I think Trump would take it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So every 4 years we get a shift of power, and, just like with all shift of powers, people get let go, people move on, different policies change and are enacted. But Project Veritas has released a scathing, at the very minimum, review talking about how before the inauguration, EPA and a lot of other agencies were trying to grasp as much power as possible.
This came out a while ago, right? I think this might have come out a while ago, but only 6 days? For some reason, I thought this was older than that. But this really, this hit me. All right, sorry. Take it back up.
One of my very top priorities at EPA is to be an excellent steward of your hard-earned tax dollars. There will be zero tolerance of any waste and abuse. An extremely disturbing video circulated 2 months ago.
That's what it was.
Featuring a Biden EPA political appointee talking about how they were tossing gold bars off the Titanic.
It truly feels like we're on the Titanic and we're throwing like gold bars off the Who are the gold bars going to? Nonprofits, states, tribes.
Rushing to get billions of your tax dollars out the door before Inauguration Day. The gold bars were tax dollars, and tossing them off the Titanic meant the Biden administration knew they were wasting it.
It's until the Trump people come in and tell us we can no longer give up on this.
Jesus, man.
And this is the US aid thing kind of like in real effect. Like, everybody was mad, like, no, well, those nonprofits are helping people and they're doing, and then you hear a report like this, and it just is another like notch about the transparency, credibility.
Let's make it harder. Let's assume that they're throwing the gold bars overboard as fast as they can before Trump gets in, because they really believe that the NGOs are going to do something wonderful. That's where I'm like, look around America. We have a whole lot of problems. And the reason that empires end up collapsing is, historically speaking, it's basically they have the best Navy, so they go kick everybody's ass. They control trade, essentially. And then they end up burning so much money defending the just sheer scale of their empire that despite all the money that they were originally able to collect from the places that they conquered, it just ends up bleeding you dry.
Sheesh.
And so part of what we're witnessing in America's weakened state is that we've just been sending all this money everywhere. And I'm not even saying it wasn't buying us favors and helping us like keep the, different parts of the world on our side. I'm just saying that it has a consequence back home. And if you were doing all of that and you had a balanced budget, I wouldn't squawk about it. I'd be like, oh, okay, like if this is what we're doing, diplomacy, this is how we're doing it. You guys are running a balanced budget. You've unlocked innovation. Things are going great. Cool. Not saying blanket, I'd be fine with it, but like that's not going to get the reaction from me or I think anybody else as it does when we're money printing, which is a sweet way of saying we're stealing your money.
Inflation.
Yeah, buddy.
Inflation.
And we're stealing your money and we're sending it other places. And so the reason I say make it harder, make the scenario harder is that I don't need them to be evil. I don't need them to have ill intent towards anybody. I need them to understand that the last 30 years have been marked by exchanging what worked for what sounds good. And so all of this stuff, I'm sure sounds great, but in practice, you have hollowed out all of your manufacturing. You put yourself in this insanely jeopardized position where the future warfare is basically all going to be drones, and you don't build your own drones in America. Everybody gets their drones at a minimum, the supply chain of the parts from China. The number of things that China controls, the flow of is crazy. And so you've put yourself in this situation where you just really took this globalist approach, put yourself in a very weak position. You forgot realpolitik is a thing. Russia makes their move. China obviously is waiting to make their move. And now all of a sudden you're like, like in a world where there is we are ruled only by the law of strength, you're putting yourself in a weakened position. And so it is blindness to that reality that we've undereducated our population, that we have seemed, certainly in California, to be really good at creating more homeless rather than reducing the homeless population. The more money we throw at it, the more homeless people we get. And so you have all these levels of dysfunction, including people being unhealthy, including people not wanting to sign up for the military. And so you're basically exporting America's wealth as empires want to do. And they all end up crumbling under the weight of that, of spreading it around so much.
Yeah, it's not looking good. It's not looking good, but we're getting there. I think with this new administration, a lot of things are changing in ways that we might not have expected. And that takes me to RFK's HHS speech, where he listed off a lot of things that has been his priority and what he wants to change now that he's in that position.
Out of every 10 adults have at least one chronic disease, and 4 in 10 have 2 or more. The U.S. has the highest age-standardized cancer incident rate among 204 countries in the world, nearly double the next highest rate. Asthma and autoimmune diseases are far more common in the U.S. than in any other part of the world. Prior to COVID, American life expectancy averaged 7.8 years. That's about 4 years shorter than comparable countries. Autism now affects 1 in every 36 kids, a more than 4-fold increase over past decades. 18% of teens suffer from fatty liver disease. Nearly 38% are diabetic or pre-diabetic, and more than 40% are overweight or obese. These conditions were virtually unheard of when my uncle was president, 1960 to 1963, when I was a 10-year-old boy. The sperm counts and testosterone are down about 50%.
And then he had another point he wanted to bring up.
Yeah. So, I mean, before we move on from that hearing all of those maladies is bad enough. Hearing that we're not like, it's not like other countries are having the same problem, or at least the same problem at the same rate. There is something we're doing that is yielding an outcome that we don't want. I pray that nobody wants that outcome. And so the fact that for so long this has been taboo to talk about is just nuts. And I don't know if it's big ag, big pharma, whatever, and this is just a money and politics kind of thing, but it's crazy.
40% have 2 or more chronic illnesses. That's the number that stood out to me. Like,
that's nuts.
It's crazy.
To earn that back, that level of global trust. And what is the path to public trust? The path to trust is always through transparency.
Do you think transparency and these new policies will change our American health landscape?
Yes. If he's actually able to do what he's talking about, which is I'm going to run all these tests, we're going to, nothing is going to be too taboo to talk about. We're really going to look at, okay, what vaccines work, which ones don't. We're going to look at our food ingredients, what's causing what environmental toxins are there, all of that stuff. If you go through it and you accept that, because he goes on in that speech to talk about this all has to be replicatable. So you've got to see that we spent money on a study and it yielded these results. Crazy. Nobody was expecting these results. Oh my God. So by all means, rerun it, see if other people are getting the same result. And we're going to accept whatever the replicatable result is. Like, we're not going to push back. I mean, this guy spent his whole life pushing back against gigantic corporations. So I don't think for 1 second that he's going to suddenly be compromised by that. But if he is, fucking call him out like crazy. But it's like, you really have somebody that truly seems to say, okay, we're going to study the things that seem to matter most. We're going to hold ourselves accountable to replication. We are going to accept the findings, whatever they may be, and we're going to steer by what's actually happening to the health of our population. And that, to me, like, he said, you won't even need a FOIA request. Like, we're just going to be that transparent. We're going to show people what we're funding. We're going to show people what the results are. We're not going to make you ask for it. And I was like, dude, that is rad. Like, spending time with RFK, not even just with him, because anybody can make you feel warm and fuzzy for a couple of hours. But doing the amount of research that I did on him for the show, I was just like, look, has he said things that were crazy in the past? Maybe. It's certainly possible. But if you look at the things he's been saying for the last few years, like it's bangers. Like, this is somebody who's like, well, whatever works. But if it doesn't work, we got to say it doesn't work, regardless of how much money there is. Yeah. And so I am beyond optimistic about the HHS. And just real fast, because I know one of the criticisms is, it's crazy town that this guy's not a doctor. You don't need a fucking doctor. He's not going to be adjudicating the studies. He's going to say, are these studies being run well? Yeah. What are the things that it makes sense to look at? Which, again, it's not going to be just him sitting there. You need somebody that has the moral compass, has the caring of, like, this topic really matters to me, and is going to find incredibly smart people that are qualified in all the gazillion little areas that they're going to have to be qualified for. But most importantly, saying, we're going to be transparent. We're going to make sure that this stuff replicates. It's like, I don't know, why do you need a doctor to tell you that? It's absurd. So yeah, people are going to need a different reason to hate him, because having a doctor, we've had doctors in that role, God knows how many times, maybe every time, and we're sicker, more unhealthy than ever. So
that's my whole beef. If you can hate RFK, cool. Are we better? Are we healthier? The answer is no. Are other countries that we spend more, we pay more, we care about it more, but we're still not as healthy? Yup. Something is broken. Let's just fix the broken thing. Like, if he fixes it, we should all be celebrating about it. And there's a lot of when Michelle Obama wanted to do school lunches, Republicans were against it. I completely agree.
Then shame on them.
Literally, yeah. And it's like, to highlight the wife of the president's initiative with the head of the HHS is not necessarily, apples and apples, but I agree. Healthy kids should be the result. Healthy and educated. I'm hitting my buttons now. Like, that's the two things we want our citizens to be. So if he's trying to make us healthier, I don't understand why people are arguing with science while you're taking 16 prescriptions. Like, what are you talking about? We shouldn't audit this. Let me just take these 3 pills and I'm fine. Like, that shouldn't be the standard. So I'm off my hill.
No, that's crazy, man.
All right. Let's talk robots.
Robots.
Meet Helix, our in-house AI that reasons like a human. This is crazy.
Cheers. Can you come here? Okay, I'd like to try something new. Even though this is the very first time that you've ever seen these items, I'd like you to use your new Helix AI.
It lost me already. It's creepy.
Really? So you get a negative feeling when you watch this?
The fact that they just nodded and...
What I love is watch they look at each other at one point. It's crazy. I was like, yo, why are you looking at each other?
What y'all talking about? What? I can't hear it.
No, but I actually get very excited when I see this. This is phenomenal. Now, do I buy that they've never seen these objects before? No, probably not. They've been trained like on a gazillion things. They know what to expect in a fridge, which is how they figured this out. But if these guys are not teleoperated, which this would be the biggest scam in the world if these guys are just teleoperated. So I'll assume, given the call to AI, they're right there. That's where they look at each other. That's so fucking crazy. This is amazing.
Yeah, I know you're all in on like robots and the fact that they're communicating
all the way in. Testicles crammed in, the whole nine. Like, bro, I'm up to my kneecaps.
Balls
like
deep.
all the way. I would fit more of myself in if I could, Drew. Yeah, no, for sure. I'm 100% in this game.
So is robotics a new arms race then? This is the gold rush. First one to crack it wins. Like,
no, AI is the one you have to worry about in terms of a winner take all. And robotics is going to be spread out. People will do all different kinds of form factors. In fact, I think you have another one that we're going to show here in a second. But many people, Elon Musk included, have said that robotics will be the largest industry ever. And I buy that.
Where is that? There it is.
There.
The synthetic humanoid. And then this bot is going full like Westworld. Like this
full Westworld. It has 206 bones. It has faux ligaments, faux tendons. It uses water in order to like flex. This is so crazy.
Like, and there's like
Dude,
an
look at
arch on
that.
its foot. Like it's
This is so crazy.
All right, I'm gonna put you on the hot seat. ETA till we see robots in our everyday lives like proliferated. Not like back in the 80s where it was like the two guys in business suits had the big cell phones, but when will I see like a robot picking my kid up from school type thing?
We'll get back to the show in a moment, but first I want to tell you guys about the food that I eat more than anything, and that is the meat from ButcherBox. Now, why do I love ButcherBox so much? It is very simple. I need my meat to be very high quality. I care a lot about what I eat, and I care a lot about what I ate, especially with what I went through with my wife, Lisa, and her gut issues. I realized very quickly that you can actually tell the difference between something that is grass-fed and something that is not. And ButcherBox offers 100% grass-fed beef, organic chicken, wild-caught seafood, and all of it is delivered straight to your door. It's not a bunch of marketing talk. That's real convenience and quality that they focus on. If you sign up right now, you're gonna get your choice of top sirloin, ground beef, or chicken breast free in every box for a year, plus $20 off your first box. Go right now to butcherbox.com/impact and use code IMPACT at checkout to see what I'm talking about. Again, that's butcherbox.com/impact and use code IMPACT at checkout. Now, back to the show. So it's gonna start being Waymo style, where it's like you do see it, but you don't see it super often in 27. By 28, you're probably gonna start encountering them a lot. By 2030, they're just a normal part of life.
5 years, they're everywhere.
5 years, they are a thing you encounter with high frequency.
Copy.
Everywhere is more, just because of the realities of production, everywhere is more like 2043, something like, no, sorry, that's way too long. 2033, 2035, somewhere in there.
Ooh. Man, all right. I'm gonna let that go.
No, it's crazy. Those will be coming off millions per facility in the next 4 years.
Man.
It's crazy. That one's going to happen fast. That one's going to be very shocking to people for sure.
Technical difficulties, and we're back. In international news, Hamas just released 4 bodies of hostages, and this is pretty gruesome. It was a mother, a 9-year-old child, a 4-month-old, I believe, and the body of a journalist. I got nothing. This is a terrible situation.
This one's a failure of imagination for me. I never would have imagined that people would want remains back badly enough to trade military age people. I'm shocked by that. Did that make your radar? I mean, look, I don't know if we have the video. It's very horrifying because it was the capture of the mom and 2 kids was filmed. And so you can watch it, and knowing now that they've been killed is just gruesome.
That's my biggest thing. It's just using when the children become pawns of war. It's just uncomfortable.
Here's the thing though, man. When people go into war, this is all people on all sides, everybody, everywhere, all at once. But they stop being human. And you just start thinking of them as like the enemy, the less than. This is why, speaking of things Trump said that people hate, when he was talking about they're poisoning the blood and all that stuff, it's like, bro, that language is that's on a spectrum of shit you do not want to fuck with, because you just start putting people in that other category. No bueno. And once people accept that the line between good and evil runs through every human heart, it's like you've got to guard yourself against shit like that. You cannot let yourself go down that road, because, dude, the fact that they could allow themselves on any side kill a mom and her kids, like, yikes. Now, look, Israel bombed the shit out of a bunch of mom and kids. That's what I'm saying. All sides, fuck all that. Like, it's crazy town to me, but it is humans.
Hoping for a swift end, and we're praying for people as they're going through it. Last one. Streets is trash update. Streets
is trash.
This was a funny video. It looks like it was staged, but I just thought it was hilarious. I wanted your reaction.
This is definitely staged. Don't think we don't know, chat. But it still gets to something real here. All right, for anybody that's just listening, it is a couple sitting next to each other, which we will talk about, on the same side of the table. And one is pretending to eat with chopsticks, but in reality, eating with her hands. All right, so, Drew, why did it catch your eye?
Because this reminds me of the thing, like, one of my, like, female friends once said that, like, when she would, like, spend the night at a guy's house, like, she would wake up early, put on her makeup, then, like, get back in bed type thing.
Oh, yeah.
So it was kind of like that first date, like the earliness of a relationship. You're trying to put on your best self. So I just thought this was hilarious that she couldn't use chopsticks, but she's kind of, like, faking it and pretending.
So this one is a double-edged sword. So one, I think the most important thing that you can do at the beginning of a relationship is have no fear of loss. Be aggressively who you are. Now, having said that, package the aggressive you in a way that other people are actually going to be interested in.
Yeah. For
sure. You want to put your best foot forward. You don't want to, like, whatever weird quirks you have in your personality, you don't want to try to force them into the first date. But, like, you 100% want to go in with no fear of loss. But you are going to find yourself in a situation like my favorite story from the beginning of Lisa and I's relationship. So I used to be heavier than I am now. And so I'd run hot all the time. And I slept with an AC unit. Literally, my bed was against the wall right under the AC unit. So if I lifted my knees, it would hit the AC unit, like that kind of close. And it would just blast onto the bed. And the first time Lisa stayed over, she wanted to look sexy. So she's wearing something super skimpy. I had not yet realized you need separate blankets. So we had one blanket. I completely yank off her. She's now freezing to death, can't sleep, but didn't want to not be sexy. So she was like, well, when he wakes up, I want him to see me like with my makeup and, you know, in my skimpy little outfit. And so she literally freezes to death all night because she's afraid of like putting it all out there. And it worked. We're married, right? So it was like, I wake up, I'm like, whoa, man, this chick really is hot. Like, she looks so good, even in the morning. This is crazy. So it is a hilarious balance to walk. But yes, you must package yourself up well, but don't bamboozle. Don't be something that you're not. Like, you want to make sure that you are aggressively who you are, because getting somebody to fall in love with a version of you that isn't true is a death sentence. You're going to be in a loveless marriage. That I don't understand 100%. That.
All right, last question. We got to get out of here. Side by side at restaurants or across from each other?
It depends on the restaurant, but when there's space for it, Lisa and I usually sit on the same side. So then we can have physical contact. We can touch each other, like not in like a weird way, but just, you know, it's nice. The little hand hold, hand on leg. Yeah, we love it. So we will very frequently sit on the same side.
To me, it's like talking to the...
I get it. That's why, like I said, it depends on the setup, because that's perfect for me, because if one of you's in the corner, you can lean your back against the corner. Yeah. And so now you're facing each other a little bit. If you're like in sort of an awkward space and there's not a ton of room, it can be difficult. But women, you may actually want to try this exercise with your guy, despite the fact that we have a guy right now telling you it's bad mojo. But guys often have a much easier time really getting into detailed stuff when they're looking forward. This is why guys, when they get together, they'll play games. They'll do a thing that gets them both facing forward. I've heard relationship experts encouraging people like, hey, go for a drive if you have to talk about something really hard, or go for a walk, because it just naturally puts you in this where you're facing forward, and it can be a lot easier. So for that reason, it can also be easier if you have a guy that has a hard time tapping into emotions.
I heard something similar, like for the male brain, if there's movement or something happening, they can then process that and then have a deeper conversation and access to their emotions, rather than they're just sitting stationary and you just come with a barrage of questions. They need that thing to jumpstart, and then I can like have
That's
the conversation.
interesting.
Yeah.
Does not surprise me at all.
All right, that's all I got.
There it is. Everybody, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and be sure that you join us live for episode prep Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, 8 a.m. Pacific time. We do all this live with your help. You guys can have a massive influence on what ends up in the episode. And to all of the people that are showing up religiously, we love you guys. Thank you for being a part of it. Until next time, my friends, be legendary. Take care. Peace. If you like this conversation, check out this episode to learn more. The Doge Chronicles continue as they spy a missing $4.7 trillion at the Treasury, sparking calls for an audit of Fort Knox. The president of Argentina gets in on the meme coin game, and it does not go well. Trump says if you save